New in the Hunter Biden scandal now, the president's son was bragging about his relationship with former President Obama's ambassador to China just before his business associates arranged multiple meetings with him. That's according to emails found on Hunter Biden's laptop, reviewed by Fox News now. Former Democratic Senator Max Baucus was sworn in by then Vice President Biden as the U.S. ambassador to China in late February 2014. About 2 months later, Hunter Biden said this in an email, from the laptop, as his associates were setting up meetings with that brand new ambassador to China. On Baucus, we have a very, very good relationship, and I can ask anything we need. I bet the Chinese like that. They're a communist government. A Republican member of the House Oversight says this raises more questions for President Biden.
Then candidate Biden told the American people, Dagan, that he did not have any business dealings, he didn't have any knowledge of the business dealings of his son. We found out through the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop story that wasn't the case at all. We're talking about folks in China, and this could be a national, think about this, the president of the United States could be compromised.
Well, and that's the whole point of all of this. It's not some fascination with Hunter Biden and what he types on. It's national security and the president. Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor and former Utah congressman. Jason, this comes at a time when China's been flying stuff over us trying to get information, and we can't even get our hands on everything on the laptop. They deny it for 2 years.
Yeah, and the government has had that material for years now. I think they've known for a long time at the FBI, the Department of Justice, that this is a problem. In this particular case with the former senator from Montana, Max Baucus, remember, Max Baucus goes into office with Joe Biden. They're both senators at the time that Hunter Biden was 8 years old. And Hunter Biden just had a birthday. He's now 53 years old. So to say that he has a very, very good relationship is probably not a stretch of the imagination. The problem is Hunter Biden takes a stake in BHG, I think is the organization there that has a stake in China. It's tied with Chinese intelligence officials. Hunter Biden is flying on Air Force Two with the vice president to China, and obviously using these connections to come up with business deals that enrich the Biden family by the millions of dollars.
So, Jason, is this the sort of thing, because now things are kind of tying together more, and at the nexus of all of this is a country that hates us so badly that when COVID was spreading, they didn't even give anybody a heads up, least of all us. So badly that when they were flying a spy craft over us, they said it was a weather balloon that had blown off course on a non-windy day. I mean, when you look at this, should the American people have known about what was going on with the Bidens before they voted in the last presidential election?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so offensive about these intelligence officials that tried to suppress and dismiss this information, and to go after Donald Trump. It's about China not being held accountable. All of this ties together. Everybody should have known because the reporting was actually there, but the stories were suppressed. And still to this day, we don't understand about Hunter Biden's art dealings. We don't understand how much money he still may have coming out of China. How is it that the Bidens, Joe Biden, is a United States senator on a $174,000 a year salary? How is it that he has beach houses in multi-million-dollar mansions? And you start to look at Hunter Biden, well, he's claiming that he owns some of these houses, then he doesn't own them. I mean, the paperwork is really fuzzy here, and this is what gets the American people, all this privilege that ends up in the bank account of the Biden family. And why isn't that exposed? You have to fill out financial disclosure forms, but it seems that those are incomplete.
Yeah, speaking of fuzzy paperwork, you know what we aren't talking about? Because of flying objects and everything else, those classified top secret documents that were found in possession of President Biden. There's more to come. The top secret part of that, the part that I really care about, that has to do with national security among all those classified documents, at least some of them reportedly having to do with China and Iran. We'll go deeper, you can bet. So there was this letter. It was an open letter, actually, that wrongly suggested Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. People signed it. One of those key signers now says, no, he wasn't trying to say that. Who is it? Former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, who told Politico he deliberately distorted the letter he and more than 50 others signed, many of them Joe Biden backers. Clapper told the Washington Post there was message distortion. All we were doing was raising a yellow flag that this could be Russian disinformation. Politico deliberately distorted what we said. It was clear in paragraph 5. Here are the receipts, though.
To me, this is just classic textbook Soviet-Russian tradecraft at work.
You got it, right? He said it. A new op-ed lays out Clapper's motive. He's worried now that the GOP controls the House and has vowed to haul in the letter's signers and make them testify under oath. He's trying to pre-shape the narrative, trying to get out like a prequel. Jason.
Look, Clapper is once again demonstrating the political hack that he is. Most people don't realize if you're a rank and file person and you have a security clearance, when you leave your job, you lose your security clearance. These people still have security clearances, and they should not. The way I think the House Republicans want to know is,
can I just pause right there for just a second, Jason? Why does he have a security clearance? What does he need it for?
I don't think he should. I think they should lose it. But people at the highest levels, when they leave, they still have those so they can communicate and interact with others. I'm not here to justify it. I'm just saying these people should be, these things should be yanked back. They should not be there. But I think what the House Republicans want to understand is why and who? Who was the person? Who was the ringleader? Because 51 people in the intelligence community did not just spontaneously come together and accidentally put this together. Who did it? Who pushed it? They got the desired result. And you know what, Mr. Clapper and Brennan and everybody else that signed this thing? Where was the apology letter? Where was the letter of clarification? It's only now that House Republicans are in charge that you're actually getting caught in this. And I think it's going to be very revealing if they can actually get to it. Because these people lied to the American people. They misled it. They said, oh, we have a security clearance. You don't. We know you don't. And guess what? You shouldn't even look over here. And that was the justification to suppress the story. And oh, by the way, Harris, it's just a couple of weeks before an election. What a coincidence.
Well, and that's why I asked before. I mean, shouldn't the American people have really known the facts? And are some of these other media who are helping to feather and further that disinformation lie, are they complicit in this? You know, there is some movement that you could take that's punitive against some of these people if you really wanted to. Jason Chaffetz, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.